Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. This is Taimur, and this is my channel, the Cloud Security Guy. Now, the idea for today's video came up to me as I was reading up on the top skills which people ask me, and I get asked this question quite a bit, like, what is the one skill I should focus on? I should improve when I'm in cloud security or cyber security? And my answer is usually almost always the same, which is threat modeling. And the reason is simple, especially if you're on cloud security. It doesn't matter if you are like a beginner level, cloud security engineer or a head of cloud security. Threat modeling is an activity you will need to get better at if you want to be successful at analyzing and finding out risks and how applications can get compromised, especially in the cloud, in DevSecOps. Threat modeling is a very, very important skill. And honestly, even the market, which I was quite surprised to see that threat modeling, the market is being increasingly becoming more and more popular, more and more prominent, more and more people are like the overall industry is maturing as threat modeling becomes more and more mainstream. It wasn't that much a few years back, which I'm very happy to see. So threat modeling definitely is a very important skill you should learn. And in this video, I want to talk about some mistakes that people you want to avoid when you're doing threat modeling. And I've seen many people do these when you start out doing threat modeling in cloud or in general cybersecurity. And these are based on my own experiences. So I do, like, I've seen this actually happening within practical real life scenarios, right? So if you're new to this channel, please do like and subscribe to this channel and share this video if you found it useful. So going back to the topic, so let's start with, like, what is threat modeling? If you're new to this channel, I've talked about it many times before, but just a quick, like, 5-minute recap. Threat modeling, this is like the OWASP description, that it is a structured representation of all the information that affects the security of an application, blah, blah, blah. I don't like reading the book definition, but simply put, threat modeling is a formal way of, assessing the risk to your application by diagramming it, right? Unlike standard risk assessments like you do in Excel sheets or something, it is application centric and it can be quickly used to understand the entry points for attacks on your cloud environments or your application. So, like, the key questions we ask, that what are we building, what can go wrong, and what can we do about it? Okay, that's pretty much it. These are the three questions. It doesn't matter which phase you are on in threat modeling. These are the three questions which are you have to keep asking yourself. And, like, this is a simple diagram, right? If you had, like, say, a web application, you would be thinking about, okay, what are the attacks, what are the trust levels, what are the permission boundaries, what are the privilege levels. All these things you have to ask. This is, I've already talked about threat modeling in other videos, you can check those out. But at a high level, this is what threat modeling looks like. But despite how easy threat modeling is, I often see a lot of people making mistakes when they start out, right? And so, what are the common mistakes I see in threat modeling? The first one is focusing too much on tooling. Now, don't get me wrong, tools are great for threat modeling, they make life easier. My issue is when people focus too much on the tooling and they ignore the assessment part, right? Remember that tools are there to help and not replace. They can give you great insights and they can automate, but they cannot provide you the detailed understanding that comes with human beings analyzing and understanding the environment, right? I've seen many people throw millions and millions of dollars into AI driven threat modeling tools or automation or threat modeling tools that will, I mean, I don't want to mention any particular vendor, but millions and millions of dollars are spent. And what happens is people become too reliant on these tools and they forget that the whole point of threat modeling is to assess risks, right? And I'll give you one example. A company I worked at many years ago, the cybersecurity team, they heavily depended on a popular threat modeling tool, and they were using those to create threat models. And during a manual review session, they had hired an intern. He pointed out a potential threat related to the application, and the tool had completely missed it. And that was quite embarrassing for the cybersecurity team. And then going forward, they changed it. They stopped relying so much on the tool, and they made sure that a human being also analyzed it. So remember what I said, that tools are there to complement and not replace your threat modeling exercises, right? You always need human oversight. And honestly, all you need to do for a good threat modeling session is you need, like the diagram says, a whiteboard where you can draw the diagram. You need a software like Microsoft Excel or some other spreadsheet where you can capture the risks which you are being identified. And you need to have a meeting room where you can do a collaboration. We can get the IT guys, get the application guys, and then start talking about the threat so you can create an effective threat model. That's all that's needed, honestly speaking. You don't need to invest in a fancy multi-million dollar tool. Okay, remember that. Okay, mistake two is ignoring the business context. And what do I mean? It is common for security teams to focus on the technical aspects, right? Because we are technical people, right? That's the fun part of being in cloud security or cyber security. But what happens is they completely and totally ignore the business context, like what are the business operations being supported by the application and what's happening, right? And this might seem to be a small thing, but this results in threat modeling that completely overlook the threats that are there to a particular business or industry. And I'll give you one example, okay? A friend of mine, he used to work in a financial services team, and they used to create great technical threat models, right? But they often used to ignore the business or operational aspects of the application. Mostly it was technical threats. And what happened was they ignored regulatory aspects of an application, right? Because they were related to the business, and they said we don't need to think about that, that's not our job. And what happened was they had an external audit, right? And one risk was there which they had rated low, but it turned out it was directly related to a regulatory compliance issue by the regulator. So the external audit, he gave them a very heavy fine. And this, unfortunately, this bad experience taught them to always align the threat modeling with the business context. So you need to understand the business in which the application is working. So maybe if you're in the cloud, you need to know the business processes that a security breach could impact, and what are the industry specific threats your company might be facing, and then make sure those are captured in the threat model. Do not ignore this. Mistake three is lack of collaboration, and unfortunately, this is a common thing. Most cybersecurity teams, they treat threat modeling like it's their own toy. It's a shiny toy. They don't want to share it with anyone. They believe that nobody else can do threat modeling. They are the only technical people who can understand, and they look like this guy, right? In like Minority Report, where he's like creating all these complex tools that nobody else can understand. But that's not true, actually. To be effective, threat modeling has to be a collaborative effort, right? And you need to involve the other teams to make sure that you're capturing, and it's like the missing part of the puzzle. If you do not involve the IT teams, you will miss out on a lot of things. So make sure it is a collaborative effort. You get the teams involved. This is not an audit. Remember that, okay? Make sure you involve the other teams. Okay, mistake number four is static threat models. What do I mean by that? I mean by that is threat models that do not change and evolve over time. I'll give you one example. A person I know, they used to work in a retail company, a payment processor, and they expanded into an online business. And their security controls were derived from the original threat model. They had made it years ago. But unfortunately, that model became outdated once they entered e commerce, right? When they become online, and they didn't update it, right? They did not update the threat model. And what happened? They later on faced a significant hack because they had implemented controls over the new online application without doing a fresh threat modeling exercise, and they had a lot of blind spots they were not aware of, right? And this is what's so important. Do not treat threat modeling as a one time exercise. A threat model you created today might not be relevant like 6 months. So you need to make sure that you have a proper process for updating your threat model, right? Make sure that an annual exercise is done where you go over the threat modeling and make sure that it is up to date. It hasn't become out of date, because threat models, they change over time, and like the application does, right? And okay, mistake number five, and this is the last one, which is overcomplicating the process, making it too complex. And this is something I am guilty of. I've done it many, many times in my career. I'll give you my example. Many years ago, I created a threat model for an application, right? I worked at a company I worked at many years back. And honestly, I was very proud of it. I thought I captured every single threat vector I could think of. It was like a really good, very detailed threat model. But what was the problem, right? The problem was I had made it too complicated, and my own team members, they could not grasp, and the IT team could not grasp. And this complexity lead to miscommunications and errors in security implementation. It was very frustrating. Like the threat model looked something like this, like it was all gibberish. The IT teams could not understand. My own cybersecurity team could not understand because I had gone into such like a complicated. I had made it too complicated, right? And really, it was difficult to say where it started, where it stopped, what were the threats and risks, right? And that led to a lot of confusion and frustration. So I had to like eat some humble pie, go back to the drawing board, and I actually simplified it. And I found out that managing and communicating with the other stakeholders, it became much easier. So remember that threat modeling does not have to be complex. Like I said, you can use a simple whiteboard to communicate it. Complexity looks very good on paper. It looks very impressive that, oh, look how like knowledgeable I am. But honestly, it reduces how practically you can apply the threat model. And it doesn't make it effective when it comes to guiding security efforts. If you keep it simple, teams will be able to understand and they can come together and help you out. So always aim for simplicity and clarity in your threat modeling, right? Focus on the key threats that matter most, not everything. Don't put everything under the sun, and use like diagrams and straightforward language. Okay, do not make it too complicated. So this was pretty much it. These were the key mistakes I have done myself and I've seen people making in threat modeling, which I want you to avoid. If you still want to deep dive into this topic, I have a full course on Udemy. I think it's like on sale right now. I'll try to put the link in the comment section below. But I hope this helped you out and understanding the mistakes that people make in threat modeling, and I hope you can avoid those in the future also. So thank you very much. Do like and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.